All right, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. This is your Akazaki Yahoo, and I start this broadcast as I will start any broadcast by first of all giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah, Bahashem, Yahushua HaMashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who were scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say Shalom Wabarukim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High brings us back together, and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I'm joined this afternoon by my most esteemed Akinanaya. Shabbat Shalom, Aki.
Shabbat Shalom, Aki. Shabbaton Yasharal. Call Halal Yahweh. Bahashem Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. Wahar Wakakwadash. Barak Hashem.
Hallelujah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Shabbaton, that's, I always get twisted up on that one. That's basically Happy Sabbath. And, and Slacky, I forgot what you said.
All praises, call halal is.
Yeah, all praises to the Most High Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, and the set apart spirit of the Most High, the Ruach, and what was the last thing you said?
The Ruach HaKodesh, Rakah Kodash.
Ruach Kodesh. You said something after that.
Oh, Barak Hashem. That's the name.
That's the name, Slacky. I did a terrible job on that one, my bad, but I smooth forgot what you said. I was like, okay, yeah, I got you though. But yeah, it is the Sabbath, y'all. We are back with another video review, and we're going to get directly to it. The name of this video comes from, first of all, our brothers over at Black Journals. Shout out to those brothers doing excellent work and sharing the information with our people to help us understand what is going on with our people from the past and right here and now. This video is about what has happened to some of our living situations in the past and why things are so upside down for us. So here we go.
Over the past couple years, more Americans have become familiar with the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre, where a white mob burned a vibrant Black community to the ground, which is crazy. Even crazier, dozens of other Black towns have been erased off the American map, not by burning them down, but by hiding them underwater. Don't know what I mean? Well, let's find out.
Beneath the placid surface of American lakes and reservoirs lies a story whispered not by rustling leaves or lapping waves, but by the silent ghosts of history. Deep within their watery embrace slumber over 100 Black towns, once vibrant communities that pulsed with the dreams and aspirations of their inhabitants. They weren't swallowed by natural upheavals, no. Their submergence was orchestrated by a different force, a human tide fueled by a complex, murky tide of racial prejudice and progress. There's a long history of development-induced displacement that forced Black people to leave their homes, and most of them weren't paid or were undercompensated. Homes, roads, buildings, and even graves submerged. Thousands and thousands of acres flooded. Shelters and livelihood ruined to create power and recreational sources.
If we've learned one thing today, it's never assume something is unsinkable. There are over 100 drowned American towns, and many were destroyed in the name of something called development-induced displacement. That's when people have to leave their homes so the government can develop things like dams or parks or lakes. This happens to both white and Black people, but historically when it happens, Black people and other people of color are undercompensated for their property or not compensated at all.
Elba Woods, North Dakota, Kennett, California, Enfield, Massachusetts, Neversink, New York, Butler, Tennessee, St. Thomas, Nevada, and many more. Each of these towns represents a different element of America's development, yet they all share the same fate. They and hundreds of other communities like them.
So, like, well, 1 second. This explanation that audio flux is on the actual video. That's not something that we're doing here. So just so you understand that, let's continue.
And were vacated, demolished, and flooded to make way for dams and reservoirs. Their remnants persist, preserved underwater, and sometimes emerge as reminders of what was not allowed to be. Welcome to yet another touching video segment here today. This time we are taking a dive at black towns that were once upon a time drowned by whites. Don't forget to acknowledge our works by hitting that like.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting video, and they're going to cover these. We kind of looked at this before, but yeah, it's time to look again.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Lanier is a popular weekend destination known for fishing, boating, and so much more, including an eerie reputation that has deemed it as haunted in Georgia. But one lesser-known fact is the lake sits on top of the black town Oscarville. Oscarville was a thriving black community filled with carpenters, blacksmiths, bricklayers, and more. Out of all the trades in the town, farming was number one. Around 1912, there were over 1,000 black residents in Forsyth County, and only 58 were landowners. According to the Digital Library of Georgia, there were 109 black residents paying farm tax. The farm tax had to be paid by anyone that rented or owned a farm. Pastors Grant Smith and Levi Greenlee Jr. were the spiritual leaders of the community and helped keep everyone together. Records from Greenlee's church showed that picnics were organized often for churchgoers. However, violence towards black people in this town began shortly after a few black men were accused of raping and killing a white woman. Rob Edwards was arrested in September 1912, along with Ernest Knox and Oscar Daniel, both teenagers, all accused of raping and murdering a young white woman named May Crow. Edwards was dragged out of jail by white mobs and beaten with a crowbar, and then lynched from a telephone pole in the town square for everyone to see. Daniel and Knox went to trial and were found guilty on the same day. The boys were sentenced to death by hanging. Violence continued towards Oscarville, GA, with residents being threatened, homes shot up and burned. This led to black landowners selling their property for way less than they paid for it, like Alex Hunter, who bought a farm during 1912 for $1,500. When Alex sold the land, he only received $550. Land was also taken from residents through the adverse possession legal process after being abandoned for too long. According to Georgia historian Elliot Jaspin, only 24 black landowners in Forsyth County were able to sell their land, and the rest have no record of sale. It's safe to say the remaining land was stolen. Years later, during 1956, the U.S. government gained the rights to more than 56,000 acres of land in Forsyth, Hall, and Dawson counties to make room for a 38,000-acre lake, plus about 700 miles of shoreline. That lake is known today as Lake Lanier and covers the town of Oscarville. Lake Lanier provides water to the metro Atlanta area and attracts over 10 million visitors each year.
I wonder how many people in Atlanta know that that lake used to be home to our people, and it somehow disappeared, and now that lake is there. I wonder how many of the people in that area actually know that.
Right, and then you think about the things that they are no longer even teaching in school or desiring for the students to know. Right. This history is going to be lost.
Right, exactly. That's one shout out to these brothers for doing this. What was the name of that channel again?
I want to say Black Journals.
Black Journals, yeah, Black Journals for bringing this information to the forefront, and that's why I say it's time to review it again, because even though we've seen this in the past, you got to keep it fresh in your mind, because otherwise it will be lost. If we don't share it, who's gonna share it? So it's our history. Here we go.
On quiet evenings, boaters sometimes hear the ghostly chimes of church bells rising from the depths of Lake Martin. At other times, the eerie baying of coonhounds echoes across the waters, said to be the spirits of hunting dogs whose graves were never moved before the dam was built and the farmlands flooded. Here's one quick one on Cowaliga. John Benson began buying land during 1880, and by 1898, he owned 3,000 acres of land. He eventually built a farmhouse, a brickyard, a sawmill, a cotton gin, and a compression mill on this land. This led to the community of Cowaliga being formed. Together, over 40 families produced corn, cotton, sugar, wood, and more. Due to his wealth, John Benson was able to become the local bank. Yes, one man was the local bank. He began backing mortgages for black people and even loaned money to white people. John's son, William Benson, was born into wealth during 1873, and his legacy began that year. After college, William wanted to provide education to the people of Coahuila, so he came up with a plan to build a school in the community. He believed by teaching the residents how to read, write, build moral character, and even learn industrial skills, then the community would be held to a higher standard. John Benson liked the plan and gave William 10 acres of land to that effect. In 1898, the Coahuila Academic and Industrial Institute was incorporated. The school provided education to black children for nearly 40 years after opening. The Board of Trustees had well-known individuals like Booker T. Washington and Oscar Garrison Dillard. The school wasn't enough for William, as he wanted even more for his people. He eventually came up with the idea of building a railroad after realizing that most farmers were out of work for 6 months out of the year. During 1900, he purchased 540 acres at $4.25 per acre on consideration of $7,500 in stock from his father. After the purchase, he founded the Dixie Industrial Company, then began producing lumber and processed cotton. At one point, the sawmill produced 50,000 feet of lumber per day, while grossing $30,000 per year. The company also operated as a local bank, similar to John Benson. During 1914, his railroad plans came to life when he founded the Dixie Line. This was the first black-owned railroad company in the United States. The railroad company had customers all over the world, but was short-lived because of World War I. The railroad was dismantled by the Alabama Power Company during 1922, just a few months before plans for a 44,000-acre reservoir were revealed in 1923. When construction was complete in 1926, the Coahuila Academic and Industrial Institute closed their doors for good. A large portion of the institute and industrial properties were acquired by Benjamin Russell. One can't be sure how the Alabama Power Company mysteriously managed to get all the land needed for the dam to be built, but it's safe to say the land was stolen or sold for way less than what it was worth. Today, Lake Martin is used to generate hydroelectric power for the Alabama Power Company and covers what was once home to a thriving black community.
Yeah, so the people of that community, with that being the land of those people, they should be getting paid from that, from all the way back then to right up to this day. You know what I'm saying? Like they should be whatever that, like they should be getting 60% of it. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever the profit is, whatever it is, they should be getting about at least 60% of it at the very least. I know they got operating costs. That's why I'm saying 40%. You know, let that be for the actual company, but they should be paying them 60%. Like they should own that whole setup. But you know, that's how they do these underhanded things, and they take away your stuff and make it theirs, and then look at you crazy like why you can't get yourself up, like why you you know you ain't got nothing, like because you stole my stuff.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. You know, we cover these subjects, but I'm always taken back, like when I learn about this history and you know, this oppression will make a righteous man mad, like not mad, like angry. I mean, it does that too, but you know, drives a man insane, huh?
Yeah, make it crazy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about it. And then they'll look at you like something wrong with you because you in a bad spot. Like hey, you've been here for 400, 500 years. You should be top of the, like, man, shut up. That's my face.
Right.
But yeah, let's continue here. Seneca Village in New York City.
Dating back to 1821, the state of New York required black men to own over $250 in land and live there for at least 3 years in order to vote. So owning land was a big deal back then. Seneca Village was a community formed by John and Elizabeth Whitehead during 1825. The couple divided their land into 200 lots and began selling them. The first 3 lots were sold to Andrew Williams for $125. Epiphany Davis bought 12 lots for $578. The AME Zion Church bought 6 lots for an undisclosed amount. Between 1825 to 1832, the Whiteheads sold half of their land to other black people. By 1830, there were 10 homes in the village and livestock being raised. A spring known as Tanner's Spring provided water to the village. By the 1950s, there were 50 homes in the village, 3 churches, a cemetery, and a school for black kids. Compared to the other black people living in New York, the residents of Seneca Village were more stable. By 1855, half of Seneca Village residents owned their land. During 1857, the city of New York used eminent domain to seize the land and displace over 1,600 residents. Construction began shortly after, and the park known as Central Park took the place of an important black community.
Eminent domain.
Susanna or Susana. was also flooded by Lake Martin. The town of Susanna had a post office, bank, gold mine, school, a grist mill, a flour mill, a sawmill, blacksmith shop, church, and more. During 1916, Alabama Power Company began acquiring the rights to land in efforts to make room for the 168 feet high dam they planned on building. This dam covers over 40,000 acres today. Hundreds of families were displaced because of Lake Martin, and 12 cemeteries containing 923 graves were relocated. In the 1940s, Vanport was the center of a booming shipyard industry because of World War II and quickly became the second largest city in the state. But as World War II saw white males drafted to serve overseas, a labor shortage pulled in a great migration of blacks from the South. With soldiers being drafted overseas to fight in the war, Oregon saw a labor shortage. This resulted in a great migration of Black Americans from the South. These new workers needed places to live, as the Albina neighborhood was the only place where Black people could live legally. It became too small for the growing population of Black Americans, and Vanport was built as a temporary housing solution. At its peak, 40,000 residents, or 40%, were African American. But then, in 1948, massive flooding erupted in the neighborhood, and city officials didn't warn residents of the dangerously high water levels. Many didn't evacuate in time. The town was wiped out within a day. 18,500 families were displaced, more than a third Black American. Today, that area is known as Delta Park.
Wow.
The rising waters of the Garrison Dam that created Lake Sakakawea not only swallowed up farm and ranch land, but also several North Dakota cities were lost to the Big Lake's water. According to an article in Prairie Public Newsroom, it was a sad outcome for many North Dakota families who were forced to move and displaced because of this new reservoir that was created for flood control and hydroelectric power. Lake Sakakawea was completed back in 1956 in North Dakota. It is the second largest man-made lake by area in the United States. Now, Lake Sakakawea is a mecca for water recreation, but there was a time when its floors were towns with schools, hospitals, and stores. Many of these townspeople were displaced members of the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. Most of them were moved to what is now the city of Newtown. They include Elbow Woods, Red Butte, Lucky Mound, Nishu, Beaver Creek, Independence, Shell Creek, and Charging Eagle. 8 towns in North Dakota that now lie beneath the massive amounts of water that we now call Lake Sakakawea. So next time you're up on the big lake for a weekend of fun, take a moment and remember all the history that surrounds you. Elbow Woods, a town and area along the Missouri River known for its distinctive horseshoe bend, hence the name Elbow Woods, was one of several Native American towns along the Missouri River which were permanently flooded following the completion of the Garrison Dam in North Dakota. When the Garrison Dam was completed in 1953, the waters of the Missouri River behind it began to rise. As Lake Sakakawea formed, hundreds of thousands of acres of fertile land were submerged. Named after Sacagawea, the legendary Shoshone Indian woman who guided Lewis and Clark through the mountains of Montana. Lake Sakakawea, ISL, the second largest man-made lake by area and the third largest by volume, and its creator, the Garrison Dam, is the nation's 5th largest earthen dam. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built this massive dam for flood control, hydropower generation, and irrigation. One of the most important towns to the Fort Berthold Reservation fell victim to Lake Sakakawea's waters, Elbow Woods. Founded in 1891, Elbow served as the central town for the 3 tribes, containing the central business community and the local tribe headquarters. It was home to gas stations, stores, a post office, and other businesses, as well as the reservation's main school and only hospital. The construction of the dam created a vast reservoir stretching over 178 miles, encompassing much of the land previously occupied by Elbow Woods and other nearby communities. The creation of Lake Sakakawea, 200-mile-long, flooded a quarter of the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation, forcing the relocation of 325 families, nearly 80% of the population on the reservation at that time, displacing residents, flooded agricultural land, and submerged historical sites, including parts of the Lewis and Clark Trail. Many moved to a newly established community called Newtown. So while Elbow Woods itself isn't technically a lake, its location now lies deep within the waters of Lake Sakakawea, forever part of its submerged history. Though the old mining town of Kennett was a faded relic of its boomtown self, by the time it was flooded by Lake Shasta in 1944, it was still home to 100 people. Like other gold rush towns in Northern California, it was established for mining and prospecting in the region in the 1850s. Though it wasn't until a railroad camp was built in 1883, with over 1,000 Chinese laborers, that the population began to rise substantially. Gold was discovered nearby the next year, and a post office came in 1886. the largest copper smelter on the West Coast, opened in 1905, and by 1911, 3,000 people lived in town. The hills around the town were exfoliated and denuded by the acid fumes from the smelter, and farmers in the valley 15 miles away began a sweat against the company that operated the smelter for destruction of their crops. The mines closed after the end of World War I. The smelter soon followed, and Kennett's population fell over the next 2 decades. The town now rests beneath 400 feet of water, along with many of the region's smelters, paint factories, and mines, and their surrounding despoiled soils. Neversink, whose fateful name is said to be derived from the Indian word Nawasink, meaning continuously flowing, was the larger of 2 communities that were removed from the reservoir site in 1942. The other town was called Bittersweet. A total of 340 people were evicted from the valley and 6,149 acres condemned. Some buildings were relocated to nearby towns, though most were bulldozed and burned in a final harvest. Trees were removed, cellars were filled in, privies disinfected, and even barnyard manure was said to have been dug up to maintain New York City's reputation for having the finest quality drinking water possible. The Neversink Reservoir began to flood the land on June 4th, 1953, and took 2 years to fill. The scenic New England villages of Dana, Prescott, Greenwich, and Enfield were disincorporated on the same day, April 28, 1938. Over the next year, the valley was demolished and deforested by over 1,000 woodpeckers, immigrant workers from Boston, who at times ran amok in the doomed landscape, living in the vacated houses along the main streets, burning churches without authorization. Some of the old buildings were moved to other towns, but most were bulldozed into piles and burned, as was 30 square miles of forest. The valley was on fire for months. In all, 2,500 people were relocated. 7,000 bodies from local cemeteries were reinterred on higher ground. The Quabbin finished filling in 1946. It has no flood control, electrical generation, or navigation functions. It was built for one purpose only, to serve the drinking water needs of Boston, 60 miles away. Still called the largest single-purpose reservoir in the nation, it is the city's primary water source. Butler was the largest single community and the only incorporated town removed by the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, throughout that entire massive Depression-era public works project to modernize and electrify the rural parts of 7 southeastern United States. Butler was the commercial center for the Watauga Valley in eastern Tennessee, and the only real town in the region with a population of around 600. It was a typical southern town with 2 barbershops, 2 beauty parlors, markets, the Bluebird Cafe, hardware store, drugstore, a few service stations, a few hotels, 3 churches, a rail station, Masonic lodging, a brick city hall, bank, and doctors' and dentists' offices. Located in the forested hills of Appalachia, local industries were mostly wood-related and included a lumber company, a crating company, a furniture company, and a casket company. In 1948, when the floodgates were closed, the Watauga Dam and Reservoir began flooding 458 square miles along the Watauga River. 735 families had been displaced. Around 175 buildings, including shops, barns, churches, and homes, were moved to higher ground to a new town site named New Butler. Most buildings were demolished on site, and 1,200 bodies were moved from the graveyards. Some families opted to leave the graves of their ancestors undisturbed, so they are still there, along with a reported slave graveyard that TVA crews never found. When Old Butler was exposed in the 1983 drawdown conducted to service the dam, Don Stout's shoe store, made of stone, and the one-room jailhouse, made of concrete, stood out from the other foundations and building pads along the muddy streets, still lined with trees, long dead but preserved by the water.
So what he said right there, in case it almost went over me, but he said that there was a slave, so-called slave cemetery that they could not find, therefore they could not relocate. So it is just covered with water. So some of our ancestors are buried in a place where we don't even know. We don't know who these people are or where they are even. Like they're just gone. They're all of that, nothing left. They're underwater somewhere. A whole cemetery for people who were formerly slaves, So
right. And there's no apology being offered, to these people and their descendants. We also don't hear an outcry because, the vast majority of this history is swept under a rug or lost and forgotten about. Somebody's got to pay for this.
Yeah, indeed, Akeem. Indeed. I mean, that's outrageous. That is outrageous. That is a whole. Who knows how many people in that grave? They couldn't find it, so they just covered it with water. They don't know where it's at. So you got. I'm not the type of person to go to a cemetery and visit a cemetery and visit, because ain't nobody there. But at the same time, at least I know where my family is at. So at least I know where my people are at. And when it's time to bury somebody else, we go to the bury them, and then you can see, oh, here's uncle, here's auntie, here's this one or that one, whatever the case. But they don't even have that. Like, that's gone. They robbed of that because it's underwater, and the government that's supposed to take care of things, excuse was, we don't know where it's at. And so we just covered it with water. So you got a whole bunch of people who had ancestors who don't know where they are, don't know where they rested in the ground. That's crazy. That's just crazy to me. So let's continue. St. Thomas, Nevada.
Like most of the early settlements in the desert Southwest, St. Thomas was established in an area of available water. In this case, the comparatively lush Moapa Valley, 50 miles northeast of where Las Vegas is now. The town started as a Mormon outpost in 1865 and was later part of a chain of agricultural communities in the valley following the Muddy River, including Moapa, Logandale, and Overton, that were otherwise surrounded by arid desert. St. Thomas had a peak population of around 500 people, and for a while was known for producing cantaloupes and asparagus. A railway spur served the valley, and US 91, the main highway to Los Angeles before Interstate 15, went through town, making it a stop for motorists. In 1938, however, as Lake Mead crept northward, filling in behind the Boulder Dam, St. Thomas, located at a lower elevation at the southern end of the valley, was flooded. At the moment, due to regional drought conditions, portions of 40 buildings are visible at the exposed remains of St. Thomas, including the Old School and the Hannig Ice Cream Parlor. Also visible is the foundation of the Gentry Hotel, where former President Herbert Hoover stayed in 1932 while inspecting the nearby construction project he had helped to create. The Boulder Dam, which flooded the town, was later renamed in his honor. A tiny patch of Lauderdale County that takes up less than 1 square mile is still home to about 200 people. For more than 100 years from its beginnings in 1890, Waterloo was a small but bustling town on the banks of the Tennessee River, but many of its homes and buildings were moved in the late 1930s to avoid being submerged when Pickwick Landing Dam was built by Tennessee Valley Authority. Bainbridge was a Colbert County community submerged when Wilson Dam was built in 1924 to create Wilson Lake on the Tennessee River. It was built by Hewell Cooper, but after the formation of Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, it was placed under its operations. Prairie Bluff, also known as Dale or Daletown, was a Wilcox County town submerged in the Alabama River. It was settled in 1819 and was largely submerged by the Dannelly Reservoir when the Millers Ferry Lock and Dam was constructed in 1963. Falls City was already a ghost town by the time it was flooded in 1961 after Alabama Power built a dam at the Sipsey Fork tributary on the Warrior River to create Lewis Smith Lake, according to the Encyclopedia of Alabama. The projected flood zone was sparsely populated, although Clear Creek Falls, actually a pair of falls about a quarter mile apart in southeast Winston County, was a popular recreation spot for generations, Alabama Power historian Michael Snyderman wrote in the Encyclopedia article. In 1853, a post office was established near the falls, and a small village, later known as Falls City, developed. But well before the dam's construction, the town dwindled, a victim mainly of its remote location. In 1953, the U.S. Postal Service abolished the Falls City Post Office altogether. It is unclear from historical records just how many families were displaced by the dam project. In addition to buying out residents, the company also paid to have 78 graves relocated from 4 cemeteries that were in the dam's flood zone. This isn't just a story of watery graves, it's a testament to the enduring spirit of these communities. Though silenced by the depths, their echoes still reverberate. In the whispers of the wind rustling through forgotten cemeteries, in the faded photographs adorning dusty mantelpieces, their legacy lives on. It's a legacy that demands not just remembrance, but reckoning. Reckoning with the uncomfortable truths woven into the fabric of American history, where progress often wore the boots of oppression. So the next time you gaze upon a tranquil reservoir or bask on the shores of a shimmering lake, remember. Remember the stories that lie submerged, the whispers of lives and dreams silenced beneath the surface. Remember the 15 black towns, not as victims of progress, but as defiant testaments to the human spirit, reminding us that even in the deepest darkness, the embers of resilience can still glow. This brings us now to the end of this video segment. Did you learn a thing?
Yeah, so again, shout out to Black Journals, man, for doing that great work, putting these videos together, digging through the history, and sharing it with the people. Compelling information to consider, and not just nothing, not just nothing, but something to be considered as we go throughout our daily situations, living, working, eating, and drinking, and operating, and finding ourselves in sometimes the bad situations and bad circumstances, and wondering why things couldn't be better or were not better. Maybe because we could have been in one of these places that's now covered by water, but instead it was stolen, and that would have been something for us to inherit. And but instead it's covered with water, and it's crazy. But imagine having them schools and all of those positive attributes that were set up for the betterment of our people, and now it's gone. So all that to consider. So
indeed, the scriptures tell us to try to live at peace with all men, and that's what we've attempted to do. But no buts about being obedient to what Mashiach told us to do, right? It's just that we would be negligent to forget. We would be naive to look past. These things are a part of our history, and we owe it to our ancient ones, and we owe it to our youth as well to remember what has been done.
Indeed, Hakeem, 1000%, 1000%. So again, I put the link to the actual video in the description box. So anybody who wants to check out Black Journals, they have a plethora of very interesting historical videos that you can watch and understand what is what as it goes from there. I just thought about something. I don't think I did. Did we do Ecclesiastes last night? I don't think I did. I can't remember.
Man, I don't think we did, because we did a little bit different wrap up last night.
We did. We did. Good grief. I just remembered that. Oh, wow. All right. Well, Salakia, for anybody who didn't catch who caught it last night and didn't get the close out, we always want to close with the importance of the Torah, because if we'd have been keeping the Torah, if we'd have been following the ways that the Most High have set forth for our people, we wouldn't even be in this country under these people and scattered throughout the earth, because we'd be in our own land, and our power would be subduing all these people, and we'd be the top people in the world, in the earth. So that's why it's important for us to understand Book of Ecclesiastes, chapter number 12, and verse number 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It is so very important that we understand that in the conclusion of the whole matter, we are to fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. At the end of the day, when it is all said and done, we will be judged on whether we feared the Most High and kept his commandments. Why? because this is the whole reason that we are here. I am your Akazaki Yahoo, joined by my most esteemed Akinanaya, giving all praises, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua HaMashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say Shalom wa Baruchim, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait till the day that the Most High brings us back together, and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant. Until that day, Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat Shalom, Mishpachah.
Praises to the